Assassin's Creed has a lot of fan matchups that people love to talk and debate about, but there's one matchup that's always been the most popular. The one today we'll be talking about are the two original and arguably the best assassins in terms of skill, Altair and Ezio. This video will be about who would win in a fight, not who's a better character. If you guys are interested in that sort of video, please let me know. Also, we'll be using each assassin overall and with their normal weapons that they would carry to a random encounter. To judge who will win, we'll break it into separate categories, those being physical capabilities, weapons and gadgets, combat ability, durability and endurance, intelligence, experience, stealth, training, skill, and overall feats. Before we start, I want to let everyone know that this is just my opinion and my way of judging. I'll be judging by cutscenes, gameplay, and just logic. Of course, not everyone will agree, but you can't please everyone. There's some people who think Arno solos the entire franchise, so that really tells you there's a wide range of opinions in the community. With that being said, let's start off with physical capabilities. Beginning with physical strength, both Altair and Ezio are very strong. Both assassins stand at 6 feet tall. Although we never see Altair's physique, he's most likely slightly slimmer than Ezio. Both could parkour very late in their careers, both can counter and harm guards larger than them. With that being said, Altair only uses a sword. Ezio mainly uses a sword, but he can also wield axes, maces, and heavier weapons than Altair. Ezio is also strong enough to fight trained mercenaries in brawls. He even fights an armored brute in AC2 in a fistfight. Although Ezio was probably using his gauntlets to win the fight, it's still impressive in my opinion. Altair on the other hand mostly uses his skill in combat when compared to Ezio. He doesn't put as much strength in his attacks and is more defense oriented. I'm not saying Altair is weak, but for me it's pretty clear that Ezio is physically stronger. Moving on to speed, this category is a lot closer. Ezio wins a ton of races against thieves, can outrun assassins in his 50s, and has completed 2 missions very fast. He's also chased after a ton of people over his career. Altair on the other hand performs his investigations extremely quickly. He can practically outrun entire cities worth of guards, and he's able to escape from Masyaf in his 60s. Speaking of Altair in his 60s, he's been shown to be pretty much as fast as his younger self. 60-year-old Ezio on the other hand was having a hard time walking across a field. Ezio also wears more armor than Altair, and while I don't think this matters too much, I do think it's worth noting since it could slow him down however slightly. Altair also has these goofy missions where he has to collect a ton of flags in a short amount of time. I'm not sure how canon these missions are since I can't see Altair stuffing these flags down his pockets and running. If I had to pick who's faster, I'd go with Altair simply because of how fast he is in his 60s. I'll give Ezio the physical capabilities category because he outclasses Altair in strength more than Altair outclasses him in speed. Moving on to the next category, we have weapons and gadgets. Altair carries a sword, a dagger, a hidden blade, and up to 15 throwing knives. Altair does eventually make 2 hidden blades later in his career, but for this specific topic, we'll just assume he has 1. Ezio on the other hand has 2 hidden blades, a poison blade, a sword, a crossbow, a hidden gun, more throwing knives, a dagger, poison darts, parachutes, and eventually bombs and AC revelations. Altair most likely won't be able to win in a ranged fight due to Ezio's arsenal. Even if Altair lands his throwing knives, Ezio's armor could stop or reduce the impact. In AC1, some enemies require Altair to throw multiple knives in order to kill them. In AC2, Ezio has the same problem in Venice, but this goes away in Brotherhood and then reappears in Revelations. I'd assume that Ezio learned some throwing technique between AC2 and Brotherhood. In Revelations, it's most likely he's gotten older and can't do the same technique. Obviously, this is just a theory. Ubisoft most likely wanted to encourage us to use the new bomb skill, but this explanation fits in lore and with the gameplay. If Altair and Ezio face each other in a ranged fight, Ezio would most likely win due to better weapons. I have to give Ezio the weapons and gadgets point. Moving on to the combat ability point. Ezio is very skilled in combat. He's taken on an army in the Revelations trailer, and while he did lose, it's because Altair's ghost distracted him. Ezio has fought in sieges, fought gangs, fought mercenaries, brawled countless amounts of people, and is overall just a total badass. Altair, on the other hand, while we haven't seen as much, has 1 feat that puts him above Ezio. He's never been hit while we've played as him. Altair has a sync bar instead of a health bar, meaning that every time he loses sync, it's Desmond falling out of sync with Altair. The memories in Revelations also call Altair's health display a sync bar and Ezio's a health bar. Keep in mind that Altair fights through an army in one of the final missions of the game and then has to fight a large group of crusaders. He then fought his mentor Al-Mualim without getting hit. He's also saved countless civilians from guards. I'd also place Al-Mualim above any of the enemies that Ezio fought. Rodrigo Borgia was an old man who was the literal pope. I doubt he's a better fighter than the mentor of the Brotherhood. Cesare is a coward who runs away from anything and—
Guards! Papal guards! Guards! Kill him! Kill the assassin! Tear the maldito bastardo to pieces!
And Prince Ahmet is, who even is Prince Ahmet? Altair also fought the Mongols. Although I haven't read the book in a while, Altair was a great warrior when fighting them. It's important to note that Ezio is more skilled in hand-to-hand combat since he fights in Bartolomeo's Fight Club and a Fight Club in Revelations. Altair only brawls people he needs information from. I wouldn't say the orators or public speakers are above the mercenaries that Ezio brawls. Ezio can use more weapons than Altair, but Ezio's main weapon is still his sword, and Altair is deadlier when it comes to that. Combat ability goes to Altair. Durability and endurance is basically who can take the most damage and keep fighting. We know that Altair has never been hit, so it's hard to scale his durability. He has some feats like being thrown through a wall and taking a fall after a boss pushed him. On the other hand, Ezio's been stabbed, shot, and taken falls just like Altair. Ezio was even able to fight off the Borgia guards after getting shot. Ezio takes this category without a doubt since Altair doesn't really have any durability feats. Transitioning to the next category, we have intelligence. Altair and Ezio are both some of the smartest protagonists that we've played as in the franchise. Ezio was able to track down his family's killers, perform hundreds of assassinations, come up with plans to sneak through heavily guarded places. He even commanded assassins across multiple countries. He defended the Brotherhood. He's worked with and learned from thieves, mercenaries, and courtesans. He was able to track down the Masyaf keys, albeit with some help, and was able to solve tons of puzzles and find Altair's armor. There are more things, but we can see that Ezio's no slouch when it comes to intelligence. Altair, on the other hand, was able to single-handedly assassinate and come up with plans to kill all his targets. Ezio mostly got his information from his connections and then got told how to assassinate his targets. Ezio has assassinated people without help, but in general he usually gets some assistance and gets pointed in the right direction. Altair, however, collects information from all his targets and comes up with plans by himself. He of course gets some approval from the bureau leaders, but they mostly just agree with the plan he came up with. Altair is also the youngest master assassin in history. You don't achieve that by being dumb. Altair, after AC-1, studied and learned from the Apple of Eden. He wrote the codex pages that Ezio and future assassins would look upon. He also created the double hidden blades and improved the model so you wouldn't have to lose your ring finger. He also created the hidden gun and poison blade that Ezio would use. Altair also created the armor of Altair, which is arguably the best set in the entire franchise. Altair also has experience leading the entire Brotherhood, and this is debatable, but he could be a better leader than Ezio. When it comes to pure battle intelligence, I'd also have to give Altair an edge in this topic. Altair has never been hit, so he's obviously very smart in combat. Although Ezio is intelligent, Altair gets this. He has a crazy amount of knowledge from the Apple of Eden and has made half the weapons that Ezio uses. Switching topics, let's get into experience. Both of these assassins have very similar but different experiences. Altair was brought into the Brotherhood from a very young age and trained relentlessly throughout his childhood and teenage years. Ezio, on the other hand, spent his childhood— well, we know how he spent his childhood, but seriously, Ezio is no slouch since he was able to parkour fight and is decently intelligent. After Ezio's parents get killed, he spends the rest of his life up until the 50s fighting for them. Altair, on the other hand, was an assassin until death. This guy became a master assassin at 24, a mentor at 26, and then went to fight the Mongols. After returning home, Altair learns that his son was killed by his friend. His wife then gets killed and he gets labeled a traitor and kicked out. You would think that Altair would call it quits and give up, but no, he doesn't. Altair in his 80s then returns after many years and takes back the Brotherhood. Altair then leads the Brotherhood for a while before dying peacefully at 92. While Ezio does have a great amount of experience such as fighting the Borgias, leading a Brotherhood, and causing chaos in Constantinople, I have to give Altair the point since he was pretty much an assassin from birth to death. Switching gears to stealth, Altair and Ezio are both very skilled in this. Altair can perform his investigations basically unseen and has no problem pickpocketing, assassinating, or taking down heavily guarded targets. Altair is able to blend in with the crowd and can go unseen by acting as a scholar. He also has a crazy amount of experience when it comes to this. Hell, the game only makes you do it 9 times. But hey, if Altair doesn't want to be seen, he won't. Ezio in his prime is no joke. While he does eventually lose his taste for stealth, he's no Connor or Adewale when it comes to that. By the way, both of those guys are stealthy, it's just a common misconception that they're not. I'd actually have to say that Ezio is more stealthy than Altair. I used to think that Altair was more stealth oriented than Ezio. He's been trained from a young age and is practically the perfect assassin in theory. However, when you break it down, Ezio takes it. Ezio has hundreds of assassination contracts that require him to go unseen or heavily encourage him to do so. He was also able to sneak into the Vatican, Cesare's palace, and had to constantly deal with notoriety. Altair also became incredibly notorious after every assassination, whereas Ezio usually didn't, or if he did, he lost it pretty quickly. Altair definitely did his fair share of assassination contracts, but it's unclear how many he did since we never get to do them with him. Ezio on the other hand did way too many. Seriously, trying to 100% the Ezio game sometimes feels like a job. Ezio also has more weapons and gadgets to help him. He has a crossbow, smoke bombs, a poison blade, poison darts, more throwing knives than Altair, and overall just has a stronger stealth arsenal. If you look at the war machines in Brotherhood, Ezio has to sneak his way into the war machines and then fight his way out. In one of the Romulus lair missions, he goes unseen while people are talking about him. In addition to that, Ezio works with thieves and courtesans. He's completed stealth challenges for each of their factions. He also takes advantage of his allies and uses them in missions. While you could argue that this means that Ezio is weaker if he needs to use his allies, you can also complete the missions without using them. If you place Altair in some of Ezio's hardest stealth missions, I have my doubts that Altair would go unseen. Ezio has improved gadgets, tools, connections, and overall assassination experience to put him above Altair in stealth in my opinion. When it comes to training, Ezio is training from multiple people. He was most likely taught to parkour and brawl by his brother. He's been trained in social stealth by Paola. He's been taught and spent time with Antonio's thieves. He's learned from La Volpe, Machiavelli, and many others. Altair was presumably only trained by the Levantine assassins and didn't get as many mentors or figures to look up to. Having said that, Altair was trained from a child, whereas Ezio only started his career in his late teens. Altair was also trained so well that he never got hit in a fight. He was also able to take down his own mentor and father figure Al-Malin with no difficulty. Ezio really never got too much formal training if you think about it. Of course, he was taught by a lot of people, but Altair spent his days training non-stop to become the perfect assassin. The Levantine Brotherhood was most likely filled with assassins with different skill sets, so it's not too hard to imagine that Altair got a wide variety of training. All things considered, I have to give this category to Altair due to having trained from such a young age. With only 2 more categories to go, let's actually pause and combine them. As we've been discussing, both of these assassins have a crazy amount of skill. Altair was able to beat his mentor who had the Apple of Eden, track down his targets, hunt down 60 Templars, redeem the Brotherhood, and do all of that without being hit. Ezio was able to figure out the Templar conspiracy, take down the Borgia family, and pretty much raise another Brotherhood in Constantinople. He's charming, can wield more weapons, and is a better brawler. Nevertheless, I have to give these 2 final categories to Altair. Of course, Ezio is very skilled, but he unfortunately doesn't have a feat that puts him above Altair never being hit. I know you guys are probably getting tired of me saying this, but let's just stress how impressive this is. Altair defended Masyaf at the beginning of the game. He also saved around 50 civilians, with each civilian having 3 guards harassing them. Not to mention the reinforcement guards that would arrive if you start fighting. He fought his literal mentor who had a piece of Eden, he fought an entire army at the end of the game, and he's the youngest master assassin in history. Having said all of this, and in conclusion, we have the final score being 6-4 with Altair winning. Overall, I see Altair winning more matchups due to having more experience, combat skill, and overall intelligence. I still have Ezio winning a ranged fight or a brawl with no weapons allowed. However, in a straight up sword fight, I think Altair wins. Having come to a conclusion, I have to stress that this is my opinion and you may have completely different thoughts. Be sure to leave them in the comments. I love talking about these characters and I'll try to reply to all the comments I can. If you guys enjoyed this matchup, be sure to let me know. I'm planning to make more of these, with the next one being Connor vs Shay and the one after that being Adewale vs Shay. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.